It's actually crazy to think about, but have you ever noticed that whether you're trying to build up your physical strength, lose a few stubborn pounds, or even sit down to write a highly complex piece of software, you're literally fighting the exact same battle? It's completely true. Peak human performance across all these totally different domains relies on the exact same universal formula, which is structured stress followed by optimized recovery. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to completely unpack the underlying mechanics of success. Here's our roadmap for today. We're covering 4 main things: structuring physical stress, fueling lean muscle, the science of sleep, and finally, optimizing mental focus. Let's dive right in and reclaim your energy.
Starting off with Section 1, structuring physical stress through a 6-month bodyweight progression.
If you look at the first 3 months of a solid routine, you'll see the physical progression is super deliberate. The stimulus isn't random at all. In month 1, you're just conditioning with full-body workouts. But by month 2, things shift. You move into targeted splits, so push, pull, legs, and core. You're systematically changing the physical stress so your muscles are continuously challenged and you avoid hitting a plateau. Zooming in on a typical week in that second month, it's all about targeted exhaustion. On Monday, you're absolutely hammering your pushing muscles with incline push-ups and chair dips until they are completely wiped out. Then, on Tuesday, you switch gears entirely to pulling exercises. The whole point is to isolate specific muscle groups, push them right to failure, and then, critically, give them full days to recover before they get targeted again. But here's the kicker. To make sure that physical stress is actually maximized during your workout, your rest intervals have to be ruthlessly controlled. We're talking just 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes max between sets, depending on your fitness level. This keeps the intensity high and the muscles under optimal tension. But applying stress is only half the equation, right?
Which brings us to Section 2, fueling lean muscle retention and protecting that muscle when you're in a calorie deficit.
So, if your ultimate goal is fat loss, the rulebook completely changes. When you drop your calories, your body goes into a catabolic state, meaning it literally starts breaking down its own tissue for energy. You have to actively fight to protect your hard-earned lean mass. 1.2 to 2.2. That is the golden ratio for daily protein intake in grams per kilogram of body weight if you want to keep your muscle while losing fat. Your body is hunting for amino acids, and if you aren't feeding them to it, it's going to steal them straight from your biceps. To put that into perspective, the standard UK reference nutrient intake for just basic, normal maintenance is a measly 0.75 grams per kilogram, and that's literally just to prevent a deficiency. But when your body is actively trying to mobilize fat stores, that baseline just will not cut it. You have to radically bump your intake up to that 1.2 to 2.2 gram range. And you really need to get this protein from whole foods. Look, I know protein shakes and supplements are super convenient, but whole foods like chicken, fish, eggs, and lentils are absolutely vital. For one, they provide massive satiety, keeping you full so you don't overeat. Even better, protein is like a metabolic furnace. Your body burns up to 30% of those protein calories just digesting the food itself.
Now, you can't just eat one massive 100-gram protein steak at dinner and call it a day. It doesn't work like that. To actually maximize muscle protein synthesis throughout the entire day, you've got to spread it out. You want to hit a threshold of about 20 to 40 grams of protein per meal, spaced out every 4 to 5 hours. This keeps your body in a constant state of repair. And throwing in a pre-sleep protein source, that completely optimizes your overnight muscle synthesis.
All right, let's jump into Section 3, the science of sleep, looking at recovery at the cellular level.
So, we've covered stress and fuel. Now, let's talk about the absolute, non-negotiable, ultimate recovery tool, sleep. There was this wildly fascinating and honestly kind of torturous clinical study where researchers took 10 healthy guys and put them through a brutal workout of 240 eccentric knee extensions. This was specifically designed to just wreck their muscles. Then, they followed that up with an agonizing 48 hours of total sleep deprivation just to see exactly what would happen to their recovery. And the twist in these findings is just mind-blowing. The actual physical muscle damage, which they measured by creatine kinase, rose exactly the same whether the guys slept or not. Their raw physical strength came back at the exact same pace, but the real damage, it was completely hidden beneath the surface. The crucial hormonal response was heavily altered by the lack of sleep. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, skipping sleep might not instantly destroy your raw physical strength today, but it turns your body into a toxic, inflammatory mess. It skyrockets your cortisol, that's your stress hormone, and drastically spikes your inflammation markers.
This severely hampers your long-term muscle growth, your adaptation, and wreaks havoc on your overall immune system.
Shifting gears now to Section 4, optimizing mental focus through structured cognitive stress.
We're moving from the physical to the mental now, because guess what? Your brain is an engine that runs on the exact same principles. Just like your muscles need structured intervals of stress and rest, so does your cognitive focus. To manage this, we look at the Pomodoro technique. Created back in the 80s, this method time boxes our focus and literally forces recovery before mental fatigue can even set in. It completely reduces decision fatigue by making interruptions opt-in rather than letting a random ping derail your entire thought process.
But if you're a developer or doing really deep work, you actually need to tweak this system. The classic 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest is awesome for answering emails or doing standard PR reviews. But cognitive science shows it takes 10 to 15 minutes just to enter a deep flow state. So developers tackling complex code should really adapt this into a 45 to 50-minute sprint with a 10-minute break. This gives you a solid, uninterrupted 30 minutes of deep, highly productive flow.
This developer adaptation is a massive game changer, mostly because context switching is unbelievably expensive. Research actually shows that every single time you break focus to check a Slack message or an email, it costs you up to 20 minutes just to reconstruct your mental model of the code. Yeah, that one funny meme your coworker just sent, it literally just cost you half an hour of productivity. The Pomodoro method protects your deep work by isolating those reality-shattering distractions strictly to your breaks.
You know what the absolute most underrated part of this whole system is, though? The planning step. Taking just 2 minutes to explicitly define exactly what you are doing in one sentence before you hit start on that timer gives you surprising clarity. Work on the API is way too vague. Implement the user lookup endpoint is a clear, actionable goal. Combine that with taking genuine, physical, non-screen breaks, and you're protecting your mental energy for the whole day.
Bringing it all home now with Section 5, mastering your daily output through a holistic system.
So let's tie all these physical and mental threads together. The absolute biggest lesson from all the sources in today's explainer is that peak performance isn't random. And it's for sure not about just grinding yourself into dust until you burn out. It's a highly disciplined, completely holistic system. You apply intense, targeted stimulus, whether that's physical or mental, and then you rigorously fuel and rest your body and mind to force adaptation.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. We would never, ever dream of doing heavy squats for 3 hours straight without taking a breath, right? Yet we somehow expect our brains to code endlessly without a single break. You schedule your physical workouts, but are you actively scheduling your mental recovery? Are you truly optimizing your entire system, or are you just spinning your wheels? Take a look at your routines this week and see exactly where you can optimize your own output equation.